This is White Plains Week, the weekly roundup of White Plains, Westchester, and world news. With John Bailey, editor and publisher of the daily internet newspaper White Plains Citizen Net Reporter, WPCNR.com. Jim Benneroff, editor and publisher of SuburbanStreet.com and WhitePlains.com. And me, Peter Katz, formerly with NBC, ABC News, and stations from Boston to Los Angeles. White Plains Week, what's happening, who are the newsmakers, what's in store for the future. The views and opinions expressed on this program are solely those of the participants. White Plains Week is presented on Optimum Cable Channel 76, Verizon Fios Channel 45, and on the internet at whiteplainsweek.com, youtube.com, and wpcommunitymedia.org. Now, White Plains Week.
Good evening, Mr. and Mrs. White Plains, Westchester, and the world. John Bailey, the Citizen Net Reporter. This is White Plains Week, and I want to say, we say hello to all you executive orderers out there. We know who you are. And I'm with Peter Katz, the
executive orderer. Oh, you mean
orderer.
You call up and you say hello.
I want
send up an executive.
An executive order, right?
Oh.
I wish we had some executives. Exactly. So.
Hi, I'm Peter Katz.
That's right. I was going to say that.
I just work here.
Yeah. Well, he contributes. Our contributor, as they say on Fox News, right?
Right.
Exactly.
I contribute during the pledge breaks, and we'll be having a pledge break in a few minutes.
Aren't you people lucky we don't have pledge breaks? Yes. Anyway, this is what happened so far this week in a White Plains
What
Week.
happened to Jim Benneroff?
He's on assignment.
Oh, okay.
Right. As he is. We don't like to disclose that, but,
No.
you know, because we don't want people suspecting that he's observing in the midst. Anyway, here's what happened so far on this White Plains Week. First county executive debate is held, and we have video. The Tappan Zee Mario M. Cuomo Bridge opens, and tolls were announced this morning. We're taking overs and unders. Senator Latimer, Robert Astorino challenger, calls for Political Corruption Disclosure Act. Unclear whether City of Rye approved Latimer delay in paying real estate taxes. County Executive Astorino receives endorsements of Westchester County Police, PBA, and African community leaders as of today. Shared services agreement is announced by the county executive. Milagros Lacuna works phones to get vote out for mayoral election. We will have another edition of Trump the President. Westchester housing prices up very slightly. Single family housing sales down 5.5%. Inventory shrinks. New Governor Mario M. Cuomo Bridge opens. No improvement in morning rush hour. New independent surgery center to open at 1133 Westchester Avenue. Jagermeister liqueur maker moves into 10 Bank Street, 65 jobs. The library gala is next Saturday, and George Washington headquarters remembers the Battle of White Plains later this month. Right now, though, it's time for the White Plains Week Rollo Newsreel March of Time. And that was the tableau as the first Westchester County executive debate took place Tuesday. And Peter Katz, you were there.
Well, you know, John, you know you're into election season when the debates start coming fast and furious, and that's what happened this week in the race for Westchester County Executive. All eyes turned to an auditorium in White Plains.
As demonstrators from the rival political camps tried to outshout each other outside of the Rexon Metro Center on Hamilton Avenue in White Plains on the evening of October 10th, inside, the first debate in the race for Westchester County Executive was getting underway, sponsored by the Business Council of Westchester. State Senator George Latimer from Rye is running on the Democratic ticket against Republican incumbent Robert Astorino. Taxes and the county's fiscal condition were dominant subjects.
Now, George Latimer has never met a tax he didn't like. He has taxed us through the roof in the county. I mean, we can talk about what we did in the 21st century, not in the 20th century. So in the county legislature, what he has done, well, he had a leadership position, and he chose to tax. And he's taxed in Albany, the MTA payroll tax, even a 5-cent tax on plastic bags, hotel tax, business taxes, you name it, he has taxed it.
As a state legislator, we have cut state income taxes to the lowest level for middle-class taxpayers that it's been in the last 60 years. Those are 2 actual votes that I've taken in the state legislature. In the years to come, you will be paying a Rob Astorino tax long after Rob Astorino is gone. He has deferred costs for a host of different issues that aren't yet hitting the screen, but they will be. And whether your children are in the property or your grandchildren are in the property, you'll remember Rob's tenure because you'll be paying higher taxes for it. That's what happens when you borrow.
As for Astorino's plan to lease the Westchester County Airport for 40 years...
This is about a bad deal. And anybody in this room that's a business person looks at this deal and sees a front-loaded deal with $15 million in the first year, 4 years of $5 million, and then 35 years of $2 million payments. That's not a deal. That's somebody hocked something. And I think that was because Rob could not deliver a balanced budget. He had a $15 million hole, and he figured a way to break open a piggy bank. Now, there's a book by Donald Trump called The Art of the Deal. I'm going to leave this for Rob because I think you ought to read it. Maybe there's something in here that Donald Trump could tell him, because he does listen to Donald Trump on a wide variety of issues. Something could tell him about cutting a better deal than $15 million in deal 1, in year 1, and then 35 years of $2 million. Here's the future of Westchester County Airport. To honor the commitment that Andy O'Rourke made, that Al Del Bello and Andy Spano and the various respective boards of legislators, to keep that a small regional airport, not to expand it and let Connecticut come in and turn it into LaGuardia North.
All of the revenue that comes into the airport by federal law must stay there. You can't use that revenue for anything. Under a 1996 law signed by President Clinton, 10 airports, small and medium size around the country, can enter this public-private partnership, which allows you to use revenue and use it for general purposes. For us, it could be parks, it could be police, it could be daycare, it could be whatever. But that's a way where you keep taxes stable, by using an asset you have. Now, the lease that would be signed and approved by the Board of Legislators would make sure that whoever wins this would have to abide by the terms of the lease. And it's not a one-shot, it's just the opposite. It's a 40-year revenue stream, an annuity, if you will, for the taxpayers of Westchester.
And about President Trump.
If Donald Trump does something dumb, I'm going to say it, and he has. But you know what? I'm not Donald Trump. I'm Rob Astorino. I've been here 8 years. People know exactly who I am in this county and exactly what I have done.
Donald Trump has an opportunity to do good things for America, but so far he hasn't shown that's what his wish is. When Barack Obama was wrong on Common Core, I spoke up. When he was wrong on Israel, I spoke up. Let's see if Rob Astorino speaks up on these things with Donald Trump.
I already have.
Okay,
Follow
now
my Twitter.
Speak up louder, man. Nobody's hearing you.
Well, how
It was a
about that?
lively debate.
Ah, very much so. And this week, Senator...
Actually, one thing that did not
What?
come up,
Yeah.
which surprised me, was Playland.
True.
It's almost as if Playland didn't exist, at least
Right.
for the debate. You know, we so far we've seen nothing to indicate that the deal with Standard Amusements is moving forward at all. Although Astorino, afterwards, I asked him about it, and he said afterwards that everything is fine.
All right.
He
Yes.
said it's a solid deal.
Absolutely, right. Well, we certainly hope so, because we have to come to closure on that, since attendance was down this past year.
Yeah.
Yeah, but...
At Playland.
20%,
Attendance
like
was up at the debate. It was a
Yeah.
full house.
yes,
for the
and they
debate.
paid for that debate to attend it, which is interesting because... And it was also held
I think
between
I'm
5 and
sure,
7
John,
p.m.
I'm sure that was just voluntary support of the Business Council.
Certainly. 5 to 7 p.m. Actually,
Actually, it started about 5:45.
5:45. So, well, that's a little better, but it's still not a good time for a debate, for people to attend it. Now, Senator Latimer came out this week calling for a political Corruption Disclosure Act to be passed by the county, which would require county officials to disclose details of subpoenas and information pertaining to criminal investigations which they are subject to, which is interesting since the Astorino campaign has mainly consisted of hammering Mr. Latimer on his wife's tax problem with her the house that she inherited from her mother. And the Astorino campaign circulated this clip that they made from a press conference in which a reporter asked Mr. Latimer about this, and this is his explanation from the...
Senator, but your wife owning the property, I mean,
Yes.
is her tax burden not your tax burden?
Well, the point is, I am not a deadbeat, okay? And we'll repeat it again, okay? There is a dispute going on in a family, okay? In that family, there are individuals that has a claim on the assets of that estate. It is not in probate. No one's ever said it was in probate. And when I said the estate, I didn't mean the estate in terms of a legal action on the estate. I meant that which represents the assets of my late mother.
Well, what's happening is that the Astorino campaign is accusing Latimer of not paying his real estate taxes to Rye. In actual fact, George Latimer is not on the deed for this property. Therefore, he's not liable for any taxes in Rye. So it's really the Astorino stretching a family dispute into something which he has attached to Latimer personally, when Latimer really is not responsible for these taxes which remain unpaid. It's kind of as if someone accused John of not paying the taxes that his brother owes on his brother's property.
Right. Now, I did call the City of Rye Assessor and Finance Department. I asked, could you shed some light on this? Have you told Mrs. Latimer that she can resolve this dispute before she pays the taxes or anything like that? But they have not gotten back to me at all on their policy.
Well, I think clearly the lawyers handling this, you know, have said you don't have to pay the taxes right now, and in fact, you know, there is, each community has laws and regulations regarding the handling of taxes. For instance, here in White Plains, if you don't pay your taxes on properties that you're obligated to pay taxes on when they are due, then interest starts accruing.
Yes, but it would be nice. It would be nice if the county, if the City of Rye people would just get back to me, just simply say, she owes the taxes, and we are waiting.
I don't know whether
whether
they're legally able to talk about because of privacy.
Well,
laws,
they can call me back and tell me that.
They can talk about a specific incident, but they certainly could explain what the Rye policy is. For how long can you continue to allow taxes to go unpaid with interest accruing before they have to sell off what's called a tax lien?
Yes, information is all we're asking for.
And then if there's no buyer for a tax lien, or if they don't do tax liens for some reason, how long is it before the city is allowed to foreclose on a property for failure to pay the taxes?
Yes.
This happens on rare occasions where taxes remain unpaid. Eventually a municipality will take control of the property, and then they can sell the property to try to collect the back taxes. But you know, in any event, it's in a political issue, as a political issue, it's a very difficult thing to try to explain to people.
As we see. Right.
So what you have here is you have a very simple message. Latimer doesn't pay his taxes, which Astorino is putting out, which, if you look to examine the situation, turns out not quite to be the case.
Right.
So Latimer tries to explain this but it's a rather complex legal situation.
Right.
So people really
Well, he
don't
figure it
appreciate
out.
that.
He should say what it is and and say my wife has gotten approval to work this out or something like that. He is not explaining it well. Meanwhile, a shared services agreement was announced by the county executive between 29 municipalities in the county, and Robert Astorino pointed out that this will be mostly for tech services, and this will supposedly complies with the governor's mandate for counties to do this. Also, locally, Milagros Lacuna had a phone bank reach out that she conducted yesterday and has been trying to get out the vote, but we have not seen too many campaign initiatives by her in the last couple of weeks, and that election is rapidly approaching. And right now, it's time for Trump the president. You've all been waiting for this. All over the world, we make sense out of this week's Trump.
This week's what? Nonsense?
This week's
out
Trump.
Of nonsense?
Right.
The fact that Congress did not pass the Trump Care bill, which would have killed health care for about 32 million Americans, has not stopped the Trump administration from taking steps to do what it can in the way of sabotaging the existing health insurance system by changing regulations and closing government offices and websites when they're supposed to be open to help people enroll in health insurance coverage. Yesterday at the White House, President Trump signed an executive order requiring steps to allow insurance companies to stop providing coverage for pre-existing conditions and to allow them to sell policies across state lines, even though their policies may not meet minimum standards in those states. Watch what happens when Trump finishes his speech at the White House yesterday. It looks as if Trump himself may have a pre-existing condition, because what you're about to see has happened before.
Once and for all, we will have great health care in our country. Thank you all very much. Appreciate it. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Mr. President, you need to sign it.
I'm only signing it because it costs nothing. So this is promoting healthcare, choice and competition all across the United States. This is going to be something that millions and millions of people will be signing up for, and they're going to be very happy. This will be great health care. So congratulations to everybody. Thank you, everybody.
Now, it's not the first time that he forgot to sign an executive order he had just given a speech about. And video has surfaced which shows him stepping down from Air Force One and becoming confused about where his armored car is. You know, the one that has the presidential seal on the door? Even though it was right in front of him at the foot of the airplane stairs. Tweets from President Trump warned Puerto Rico that federal help from FEMA and the military will be ending. This as reports are coming out that it hasn't even begun for some parts of Puerto Rico. Instead of distributing food and water to suffering people, FEMA has been distributing flyers telling the hurricane victims to sign up for help by calling an 800 number or going onto FEMA's internet site. Keep in mind that there's no telephone service over most of Puerto Rico. And no
FEMA fumbles.
No internet service and no electricity. Some villages
That's not
haven't
funny.
had bottled water or food since the hurricane hit 3 weeks ago. Trump has not sent similar messages to Texas or Louisiana or Florida, just to the U.S. citizens in Puerto Rico. Trump's lawyers reportedly are negotiating with special counsel Robert Mueller for Trump to be interviewed by Mueller or his investigators about his involvements with Russia. If Trump has to do it, His lawyers would want it to be informal, not under oath. If he's not under oath, then he doesn't have to worry about being prosecuted if he doesn't tell the whole truth and nothing but the truth. And has anyone ever known Donald Trump to lie?
Has any politician ever told the truth and nothing but the truth?
Trump has violated his oath of office, which requires him to preserve, protect, and defend the Constitution of the United States. He did this when he called for an end to free speech and the free press by saying that the news media, especially NBC News, which he was specifically attacking, should not be allowed to report what it sees fit to report. And if it doesn't stop reporting things he doesn't like, the government should pull its and other networks' licenses. Of course, networks do not need licenses to operate, although the TV and radio stations they own are individually licensed to be on the air by the Federal Communications Commission. Trump's statements create what lawyers call a chilling effect against the First Amendment to the Constitution, creating a deterrent to the exercise of the free speech rights the First Amendment ensures. Hitler, Stalin, Mussolini, and their thugs were very good at shutting down free press and free speech. Trump has been characterizing the press as the enemy of the people. Many of those in his base believe it is, just as those in Hitler's, Stalin's, and Mussolini's bases believed it. This week, Trump objected to reports by NBC News attributed to 3 sources who were in the room when Trump was briefed about the nation's nuclear weapons stockpile. The U.S. now has about 4,000 nuclear bombs. Trump was shown a graphic which demonstrated how the stockpile has been reduced from its peak of about 40,000 bombs during the height of the Cold War, and Trump wanted to know why we can't go back to having those 40,000 bombs.
You never have enough bombs,
A tenfold increase. Tennessee Republican Senator Bob Corker told the New York Times that Trump is, quote, treating his office like a reality show with reckless threats toward other countries that could set the nation on the path to World War III. President Trump spoke to about 1,000 truck drivers assembled at an airplane hangar in Harrisburg, Pennsylvania this week, promised them that his tax plan will give them a tax cut so big it will be just like getting a $4,000 raise. And he got cheers, but based on the details we have so far, Trump's tax plan actually will result in a tax hike of from $4,000 to $6,000 for those truck drivers, unless the truck drivers happen to be among the most wealthy 1% of Americans. Trump is to make a speech in about an hour from now, as we're recording this show Friday morning, in which he is expected to say that the Iranians are not complying with the nuclear deal, and he is decertifying the agreement. All key advisors and international inspectors say that the Iranians are in compliance with the deal. Trump should not be trying to pull the U.S. out of the treaty if indeed the Iranians are in compliance with the treaty.
Bombs away. Exactly. Now, moving more locally, housing figures came out today from the Hudson Valley organization for real estate, and it shows that prices in Westchester County have gone slightly up overall. The average median price is $680,000 now, maybe fueled by the higher priced home sales. However, the residential sales are down in Westchester, down 8%. Next slide. And you can see the 4-year trend from 2014. It's down 5% on the single-family houses. Condominiums down up 7%, 0.7%. Cooperatives up 10.3% because they're the least expensive, and 2 to 4 families really popular, up 23%. This is a real intriguing trend that the lower-priced homes are driving whatever increases we're seeing in the sales. And now the big deal here, next slide please, is the inventory is really low. The blue arrow points to how the inventory on co-ops is down 15%. The inventory on 2 to 4 families down 17.5%. Condos down 4.2, single-family homes inventory down 6.5. So you can see what this could mean why prices are going up for cooperatives and the condos.
Well, if prices are going up there, something is coming down in Westchester, and that's the old Tappan Zee Bridge. They've actually started dismantling the old Tappan Zee Bridge.
And that's the shocker of the week.
Now, first, a couple of weeks ago, the traffic going from Westchester to Rockland had been switched over to a new span of the Mario M. Cuomo Bridge, and just a week ago on Friday night, October 6th, traffic going from Rockland to Westchester was also moved to the new northernmost span, and they arranged for one last car to be escorted over the bridge. And here it comes, an old Model T. Kind of neat. They had already transferred the regular traffic over to the new span and just made this final last run.
Yes, Governor Cuomo, master of the photo op. Now,
hey, it's something that you can remember. I'll tell you something else that you'll probably remember once everyone starts using the new Tappan Zee Bridge, the Mario M. Cuomo Bridge. That's the tolls, and it was announced this morning that what they anticipate after the year 2020 is that the toll will go to $10.61. If you buy a commuter package, you will be paying $7 a transit over the bridge. The toll now is $5.
right. Well, I mean, that's kind of reasonable. I think we were originally projecting $14.
That's what we originally figured. Now,
based on their financing.
This is the Thruway Authority's anticipation at this point, and this will be subject to some adjustment, they believe.
Oh, yes.
Once they get the final financing figures.
Well, that's the key figure, because they haven't really gotten the loan for the rest of the money. And I think as they gradually lowered the amount of money they were going to have to borrow, I think we originally thought it would come back down to about $11. But I have to check on that. But it doesn't really matter. That's what they say now. However, also part of the shocker of the week was the fact that rush hour, the first real rush hour, began Tuesday, and just as I think some people on a local talk show once said, when you don't change the number of lanes, the traffic is going to be the same.
Well, you know, there have been the typical rush hour traffic jams over the bridge. Now, if that doesn't clear up, I would be willing to take a guess that if Rob Astorino actually runs against Andrew Cuomo for governor, that Andrew Cuomo will propose changing the name of the bridge from the Mario M. Cuomo Bridge to the Robert Astorino Bridge.
Yeah. It could be, but this traffic problem supposedly is now going to be alleviated by the bus rapid transit system, which is all of a sudden they're hurrying up and trying to get ready, but they haven't bought the buses. And we don't know where the stations are actually going to be. And how can you have bus lanes without squinching the traffic?
Well, once both spans of the bridge are open, there will be plenty of lanes to allow for a dedicated bus lane or two.
I'm glad you're very optimistic, Peter. I mean, that's a switch. That's the shocker of the week. Peter Katz being optimistic. But then it's nice to at least hold out some hope, everybody, right? John Bailey for Peter Katz and Jim Benoroff. Good night for White Plains Week.
This has been White Plains Week, news and commentary about White Plains, Westchester, and the world. The views and opinions expressed on this program were solely those of the participants. White Plains Week, produced by White Plains Citizen Net Reporter and presented on Optimum Cable Channel 76 and Verizon Fios Channel 45. You may view White Plains Week anytime on the internet at whiteplainsweek.com, youtube.com, and wpcommunitymedia.org. For White Plains Week, this is Peter Katz speaking.